Okay, if you've got a 577 Schneider and you want to enjoy shooting it, ammunition is pretty well impossible to get. So a way around it is to purchase the Magtech prime cases. They're 24 gauge. This 25 comes in a pack. They're relatively cheap. They are probably not as solid as one would expect from a centerfire case. But I think if annealed properly and looked after, you'll get a fair few loads out. As you can see, they're about 2.5 inches in length, which is for a 24 gauge shotgun. We don't want them that length, we want them around about 2 inches. So what I do, and I know there's a lot of different methods of doing it on a lathe, but not everyone's got a lathe. A fairly simple method is to buy yourself one of these, which is a fairly cheap little tube cutter, usually used in plumbing, but okay for this purpose. Now, you can't put it straight in the cutter because you'll crush it. So find yourself or get someone with a lathe to turn this piece of metal down. You could use timber, but metal gives you a little bit more resistance for the cut. Something that fits fairly neat inside. It can't be too tight because you won't get the ring off. As you can see from this one, it won't come off. I'll have to bash it off. So, first thing to do is to measure the length of the case, and I've got mine here at 1.984 inches, or in real terms it's about just over 50 millimeters, 50.5 millimeters. So that's what I use, and I got that length off a case. I did read somewhere that the cases are actually shorter than that, the standard case, but I don't know. So, very simple to take the measurement from the base of the case, mark it with a black pen so it can be easily seen, as you can see, and that's your starting point. Insert your little piece of resistance metal there. Just wind it through so the cutter is lined up with your mark that you've just made, and this is the fun bit. Putting a little bit of pressure on it. Just turn it. Don't put too much pressure on at a time. As you can see, it's fairly tight. Little bit at a time, and suddenly you'll feel it give, and that simply means that the cutter has gone through the wall, and it should, I say the word should, come off fairly easy. A little bit more. If you've got a caring wife, she could do this for you, but I don't think mine would like to do that. Okay. And if you think this looks hard, you're right. I've already done one box, and it's an absolute pain in the butt, let me tell you. So, we keep going there. That is now given. We take that off. Take our centerpiece off, and that's what we're left with. So we're left with this, and I'll go through a few more steps where I go from here. It's all pretty basic, but it's good to get a few ideas. Once you've cut these, of course, you're going to have a little bit of a rough burr inside. If you make your cutter too tight, you'll get it rounded, and you want to try and avoid that because it can be a bit of a pain when we go into the next step. What I do, you'll just feel it with your finger. There's a tiny little bit of a burr. I just use one of these little grinding wheels. And just do that. And that's nice and smooth on the inside there now. That's that. And that there. And of course, if you want to do the outside of it, you can just get those little tiny little shavings off there. We don't want them on there. And that's it. We'll try not to damage the case. That's nice and smooth there. And there we have it. Done. And now we'll move on to the next step. We have to go out and use the press. Okay, the next step is annealing the case. You've got to do that to soften around the top where the bullet goes in. And what I use is just a little portable burner, and give it a light. Right, that's really good. Stop. What I use is a little portable burner, electric grill. I made up an adapter out of a tent pole in there. The idea is to get heat on there, but don't get it red hot. I count to about 10. You see it change colour. It shouldn't have fallen off, but it did. Do another one. And in the water. And that's it. So once it's in there, water, and that's it. That's now annealed. Now we'll go on to the next step. Okay, after you've annealed your case, you'll see that there's a bit of a change in colour, and that simply means that that's the area that you've annealed, and that's what you're trying to achieve. Now, as you can see, this is the 577 projectile, and it just slips inside the case. So they have to be resized. To resize it, I just use the standard lead. After you've annealed it and you've got that nice different colour around the rim, that's what you want to see. They now have to be resized. This is the projectile that I use, called a Mini, and as you can see, it doesn't fit. So to resize it, we use a resizing die, and Lee make one, luckily, which is this unit here. Okay. Naturally, this would be a decapping tool as well, but as there's no primer in there, there's no decapping. I also use a little bit of lube, just so it doesn't stick, because that's what you don't want. Just around the bit that's annealed. Because as you'll see, okay, you might not be able to see it, but there's the annealed one, and that's the non-annealed one. So once you've done that, now if you didn't anneal this brass, of course, you'd find it'd be a lot harder. Okay, that's done, and as you can see now, the projectile won't fit, but of course it has to be belled out in the reloading process. So that's it, up to there. Thank you. Okay, by now you've probably got all of your cases trimmed down to about 2 inches and resized and primed. I use large pistol primers just to a little bit softer, I think, and it makes it a little bit easier on the old firing pin. I'm using 2F black powder, or 2FF, whatever they want to call it, and I found it suitable so far, but I'm still experimenting with some of these loads, so just bear with me. I'm using 75 grains, which I think is pretty close to the standard load. And again, I fired some 60 grains, and I don't know, I just found that they just didn't seem to have enough grunt behind them, so I'm experimenting with 75 grains to see how they go. So 75 grains of 2FF, a little bit much in there, doesn't matter if it's a little bit over, that's spot on. Okay, after that, being black powder of course has to be compressed. I'm using a filler which is called wheat germ. You can use cornmeal, I believe. There's lots of things. I prefer not to use cotton wool as I do in the Martini Henry. I just seems to blow out the barrel and can start a bushfire. It ignites for some reason in the 577. Anyway, I use about 15 grains. I don't measure it, because it's not that, doesn't have to be that accurate as long as the powder is compressed. But I just fill the case to about 1/4 of an inch in American language. Then, as you can see there, if you can, I place a pre-cut wad. Okay, and that's now ready to load a mini. I use the mini, which has been wax lube, beeswax, and a mixture of beeswax and lard, and in the grooves, and that's it. You've got yourself a ball of fun, ready to fire in your 577 Snider rifle. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Everything might not be precisely right. You can experiment, and I'm going to do that with a few loads just to get things right. So thanks for watching, and safe shooting.
The length of the barrel. The reason being is there's burning amber in there. It could be. You pour your powder down there.
Yeah.
You've got a bomb in your hand.
Oh yeah.
That happens. It's only happened.
Did you just let us know if it goes high?